into my little box of what I need you to be. But if you don't, then forget it. I'm not going to love you anymore. So total love is really unconditional, total, and complete. And it is possible. It's agape love. It's beyond the love of this earth. We've often heard, except it says, we must again become a little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And that is a quote that I'm really getting more and more lately, to be more childlike and to play. A little child marvels at all they see and they say, well, how about that? Can you imagine looking upon the deepest, darkest parts of your own shadow and your own denials and being able to say, wow, how about that? Remember, everything is neutral, and all that arises within our consciousness has no effect on the truth of our reality. It's that neutral. God is neutral. That means that there's no spikes, there's no conditions. It's just the totality of peace and love, and we can tap into that. The way of the heart is a way of cultivating the decision to become identified with the light that can shine away all darkness. So it's just like, let that light shine. Sing our song, that song from the Carpenters we sang earlier. It's such an uplifting song. You could just feel the vibe being lifted. And then, of course, with those beautiful images, and you saw the animals just loving on each other and the expressions, and it almost makes you want to be a vegetarian. I know, I think about that more lately than I used to as well. Another talk. So, when the atonement, and we talked about atonement last week in the Way of Mastery. Atonement, people are like, well, if you come from a fire and brimstone experience of God, atone for your sins. Well, atonement is actually described in A Course in Miracles as the undoing of fear, at one-ment, becoming one, tuning in and plugging into source. So it's the undoing of all those thought systems and judgments that make us sick and keep us separated. So if we want to be at one with Creator and with each other, we have to let go. Look at those fears, shine that bright light on it, let it go, and move on. So that's the atonement. And the quote to support this from the Course about the little children, it says, except ye become as little children means unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son and his true relationship with the Father. So just let go and let God. We've heard it before. Our complete dependence, trust, faith, confidence that God knows better than we do. Spirit, Creator, whoever, whatever you choose to call it. To me, it's all the same. It's love, and love comes with many faces. As a matter of fact, we watched The Shack in here on Friday night, and interestingly enough, God showed up in two different costumes, as a black woman and as a Native American. And so, God is in everything I see. God is everywhere. And so whatever we can relate to that the easiest with, I think God's going to show up that way. So it may be in a fairy princess. It may be in a dog. It could be in many different forms. So we really are here to know that this is the truth, to tap into this and tune into our greater sense of being and who we are. That's the greatest gift we can offer to ourselves and the world. So there's, in closing, before I introduce Kathleen here, I just want to read this little statement from the Way of Mastery. Beloved friends, your life is your way home. If you do not live it fully, how can you ever arrive home? Therefore, fear not your greatness. Reminds me of that Marianne Williamson quote. Fear not the power that comes from embracing your life and claiming its value. Live it full out with every bit of passion you can muster. Embrace every second of it. Every time you wash a dish in your cup after breakfast, look upon these things and say, my God, this is my life. This is my pathway home, and I'm going to live it. For is it not written that you must become a little child to enter the kingdom? Yes, that is the truth. We must become as little children. We must surrender, give our full hearts and faith and hearts and everything we have to Spirit. And if we do that, we cannot lose. So I see the future being very bright and shiny. I'm cultivating a garden where we're planting seeds, pulling the weeds, but planting the seeds of beauty and truth and enlightenment and oneness. And I know that Kathleen, come on up here, Kathleen, she's Kathleen Sweeney. She's in my Alliance of Divine Love Ministry class, and this girl's done a lot of stuff. She's a great healer, Reiki master. She's does trauma release work, teaches yoga, chair yoga. She's just an open-hearted being and is walking her talk and living by all of what she teaches. And it's always great to see someone who's so committed to their path and just to show up fully from their heart and life. So I know that it's going to be exciting what she has to share with us. So Kathleen, I'm going to give it to you, and let's welcome Kathleen. Well, that was a perfect introduction.
Thank you, Charlotte. I personally feel that you are a great example of non-judgment. I always feel like you're always coming from the heart and there's never judgment coming from you. So just know that's what comes across.
Thank you.
And thank you all for taking the time to come through the rain. I actually am going to share with you something that there's only one person in this room that knows, and you would never know who that would be. So this talk is called You Get What You Ask For. And I'm going to share something that I've never even shared with my biological family. It's good, we're good. But you're my spiritual family, and so I know you can deal with this. So let me ask a question. How many of you believe that you picked your parents? Great, good.
Wait, both of them.
So, the beginning for me was in the oneness, in the love, in the peace, in the joy as one. And there was a sound. And the sound wasn't me. It was coming from some other place. So what is this sound? It made me realize, good one, separation. Did you do that on purpose? But it wasn't only me, that there was something other than me. And so that made me also aware that around me there were eyes. And the eyes were close to me were the ones that I really recognized. And I didn't know why I recognized them, but there was a familiarity. And then I realized that I was in a huge sea of eyes. There were so many eyes as far as I could see, and I knew at that moment that we had more eyes than usual at that moment coming in to some place other than where we were, because we needed to make sure that enough of us, quote unquote, made it, okay? At the time, I knew what that meant. And so the next thing that happened was I was in front of a council. Now, I call it a council now. At the time, it was just other beings, other spirits. And that was when the choices started to happen. I chose not only who my parents and family were, but also what I looked like. And that included every single thing, except, unfortunately, I didn't go as far as my feet. And it was like there was a cloud there, but feet just didn't seem important. And so what happened was, there we went into kind of like a choice place of karma. Okay, we know that now, but at the time it was like, well, what do you want to work on? And I was, well, I'll take it all on. I wanted it all. Give it all. I want to get over all this stuff that I need to work on, right? And I was told, no, you really don't want to do that, because here is not like where you're going, because there is emotion, and you don't realize that that is something that makes a whole different story. You don't know what suffering is when you're on this side. You really don't want it all. So I said, okay, give me what I can handle. So then the next thing was, okay, the gifts. What gifts do you want? So I chose everything I could get, and they let me have them. And I was so thrilled, because I did come in with a lot of talents, and I am truly grateful. But there was a time even where I was allowed to choose the essences of other spirits. Some people think that they were some famous person, but in actuality, they probably just took some piece of that with them, and that was some aspect that they wanted to make as part of themselves. And so just know that I'm not going to name them, but there are some excellent entities whose pieces I brought with me. And then it came time to make the movement from no time to time, or from here to other. And as soon as I started to go through that transition, I had a realization. I was like, wait, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this. And they said, too late. And I said, no, I really don't want to do this again. And they said, no, it's too late. And I said, okay, can you help me remember? And so I asked to remember, and I was told that wasn't really possible. And I said, but are we going to make it this time? And they said, yes. And I said, are you sure? And they said, yes. And I said, everybody? And they said, yes. And I said, but we didn't make it other times. Are you sure we're going to make it this time? And they said, yes. And I said, do you promise? And they said, yes. And I said, are you sure? I just really didn't believe them. And so I came through, and that little thing about the feet, well, I came in with a reverse club foot. Okay, so I could have gone through life with, stumbling, not being able to play, or not being able to climb trees, or not being able to enjoy all the things that I did as a child, if it weren't for the fact that my aunt, who was a nurse, happened to be there. And she said to my parents, who they already had 2 children. One was a 4-year-old, one was a 1.5-year-old, and my father had just graduated from college. I forgot about timing. Before I came in, we had to figure out where to come in, okay? So I saw this like Taurus of all time, and I had to pick which time to come in at, but it was already known that these eyes were coming in at this time. It's just like fine-tuning that moment, and I didn't get it quite right. I came in 2 weeks later than I was expected. My dad had already graduated from college. They were waiting to move. He'd gotten a job with IBM, and they were like frantic. When is she going to come? And so finally I come in with a reverse club foot. And so I needed medical attention. So my aunt said, go ahead, you guys move. Go to New York. We were in Iowa. Go to New York, and I'll bring her when I've got her fixed. So my first month of life I spent with my aunt. So we bonded nicely. In fact, because I had asked to remember, I was given something else that I never would have dreamed, but I didn't even realize that was why I remember, because I remember everything. I remembered when they burnt off a red lump on the crown of my head. And when they did that, that was what removed the veil for me to be able to remember. But I didn't know that until I saw a psychic when I was older who told me that was why I remember. And so that was something else they had to take care of. They did it when I was a day old. And I remember them doing it. I didn't feel the pain, but I remember wondering, why are they burning my head? And then with the reverse club foot, they did that just a few days, like within a week later, and put me in a cast. And so I was immobile. And so, you know, and these days they actually don't do it that way, but it was a much better way, excuse me, it was a much better way to do it, the way they did it then, because when you're born, your bones are very flexible, and they just straightened it out, put a cast on it, and I was fine. So I stayed with my aunt for a month. She told my parents that she would bring me. I remember being in a bassinet in a convertible, she always had a convertible, driving forever on 2-lane roads, of course having no concept of time. I have no idea how many days it took, but it did take quite a while to get there. And when we finally did arrive, she ended up living near us so that she could have a relationship with us as we were growing up. So I was always grateful to have her around, because another thing that I was born with was an inability to say my R's correctly. And because her name was Ruth, I had to say her name a lot. She would say my name, Ruth. Say my name, Ruth. Say my name, Ruth. You know, so she practiced with me so that I could say my R's. So this woman was a very, very amazing woman in my life. And she actually, when she passed away, she was buried on my birthday. 39 years later, my mother was buried on my birthday. So that's kind of, I just had my birthday last week, so it's all very, you know, coming back to me. So the promise that I kept asking for, do you promise, do you promise? Well, lately I've been hearing people say the promise, and I've been hearing people say the call, which to me means the call, the awakening, and the promise is the promise that we're going to make it. We're going to make it this time. And now we see it happening. We see that we are moving in consciousness into a higher dimension. And so I feel this great joy at all times due to the fact that this is a fulfillment of that promise. Like they really meant it. It's really true. We really are going to make it. So we did ask for this, whether we know it or not. When we were in this huge sea, we came in because we really wanted this to be happening. And enough of us had to be here. And you, my spiritual family, are one of the reasons why it's happening. And so I applaud you, and I'm grateful for you. And you really are so important to me. You have no idea, the first time I walked in this door and I felt the energy of this group, I knew I was home. I'm more at home with you than I am my biological family, believe me. And one of these days, I'm going to tell them this story, and maybe they'll understand why I was always so weird.
You're not weird.
That's because I found
You're normal. You're normal. That's right. You're normal. So, but again, that's another talk.
That's another time.
But well, Kathleen, that was awesome, and I'm so grateful as you are for this beautiful family that we've created here, and being on this journey to awakening with each and every one of you, and also everyone who tunes in. We thank you for joining us on Sundays, and looking forward to next week. So peace and love, namaste. Got it. Okay, so great job, Kathleen.